Hi, boys and girls. We are all the way to chapter 15. We're getting so close to being done with this book. Chapter 15 is called To Offer Grooming. Hold your hand on the ground in front of the rabbit. If the rabbit accepts, he will come to you. Scared had been training in secret. She was miles ahead of excited, with nowhere in sight. More than anything, I wish school were over and I could go to my room, close the door with Lappy, and never come out. It was so unfair. Lappy could have died if Dad and I hadn't rescued him, and he loved me now. The girls kept talking as they ate their lunch, but I hid the rest of the pickles in the napkin. I didn't even care about pretending I liked them anymore. How could this have happened? I'd pushed the worry that Lappy might belong to someone else far into the background, and the idea of coming home from school without Lappy there made me want to cry. Maybe the Abbotts hadn't loved him very much. Maybe they'd been so mean to him that he ran away. And even if they had loved him, Ira said the posters were down, so they must have given up on finding him. Maybe they had a new rabbit by now. When lunch was finally over, I told Leah I'd catch up to them at recess and went into the girls' bathroom near my classroom to pull myself together. There were other girls' rooms in the school, but I just wanted something familiar, even if it was a longer walk. I'd hoped to have the bathroom to myself, but there was another girl washing her hands. I picked a sink close to the door and didn't look at her. I didn't know what to do. I'd only agreed to give Lappy back if the shelter called. I never agreed to go looking for his owner, but a small, whiny, know-it-all voice inside me whispered, "But it's not right to keep him if he doesn't belong to you." In the mirror, I saw time for recess. In the mirror, I saw Jack in the doorway waiting for me. All I wanted was a moment to myself to figure out what to do. But there was nowhere to be by yourself at school, not even in the bathroom. "Not now," I snapped. "Can't you see I'm in the girls' room?" Hurt jumped into Jack's eyes. At once I knew I'd made a mistake. I hadn't meant to yell. It just came out that way. As he turned and ran, all my worries exploded out of me. "Wait!" In the hallway, I saw Jack disappear into our classroom. We weren't even supposed to be in there at recess, but I didn't care. Even if I got in trouble, nothing could be worse than how I felt already. When I stepped inside, the classroom looked empty. Jack wouldn't climb out a window, would he? Then I saw his sneaker toe sticking out from under the big long table in front of Miss Hutton's fabulous 5th grader's bulletin board. I crawled under the table with him. Jack's face was buried in his arms across his knees. "I'm so sorry," I said. "I just needed to be alone for a minute." Jack didn't lift his head. We sat in silence, just the sound of the clock ticking and the muffled voices of kids going outside. All morning I'd wished the clock would go faster, but now I didn't want those hands to move at all. In fact, I wished I could go back to the night before school started, before I realized how hard it was all going to be, back when Lappy was just mine, and anything seemed possible. But I guess anything includes bad things too. "Something horrible happened at lunch," I said quietly, "but no matter how awful I feel, it wasn't right that I took it out on you." "It wasn't right," Jack echoed into his arms. I felt ashamed that I had yelled at him and hurt his feelings. Jack had sat with me when I didn't have anyone. He'd voted for my idea against Iris. I told him things I hadn't told anyone else, including one of Pepier's stories. And I'd rolled my eyes and I'd yelled at him. So what if Jack wasn't exactly like everyone else? I wasn't either. If Papier were here, I knew what story he'd tell me. It had always been one of my favorites, but I understood it in a new way today. "Can I tell you a story?" I asked. "It's about the day that Monsieur Lapine tried to be like Madame Sattel, the nuthatch." "Why?" Jack asked into his arms. "A nuthatch is a bird." I wasn't sure if the why part went with "Can I tell you a story?" or with Monsieur Lapin wanting to be a nuthatch, but I answered the last one. Because nuthatches can climb up and down tree trunks and peck out tasty bugs. Jack lifted his head. "Rabbits are herbivores." I nodded. "That's true, but Monsieur Lapine has magic, remember? Anything is possible." "Yes," Jack said slowly, not sounding completely convinced. I kept going anyway. So it happened once that Monsieur Lapine decided that he'd climb a tree and get some tasty bugs to show off to Madame Sattel that he could do anything she could. "Nuthatches can go down a tree trunk head first," Jack said. "Only a few birds can do that." "Really? That's another reason for Monsieur Lapin to be jealous," I replied. "So he tried to climb the tree, but rabbit claws aren't made for climbing bark, and he got scared halfway up. And when he tried to climb down head first, he fell to the ground." I'd added that in just for Jack. Did he get a concussion? Jack asked. No, he was only embarrassed, not hurt, I said. And then Madame Sattel said, Silly Monsieur Lapin, you'll never be a nuthatch. You are a rabbit. Then she flew up into the trees and climbed down the tree trunk head first with food to share with him. They ate it together as friends. So it was. I looked at Jack. That's one of my favorite stories. I think it means that a real friend will like you for you. And even if you aren't exactly alike about everything, that's okay. I gave a small shrug. It gives you something to need from each other. Sometimes I have to be Emma Nuthatch, Jack said. I smiled the first real smile since lunch. That wasn't what I was planning to say, but it worked. And you are Jack Rabbit, I replied. We stayed under the table so long that my legs ached, and I heard the kids coming in from recess. I couldn't move, though. Not yet. I felt safe under there, and when I crawled out, that safe feeling would be over. I'd have to deal with the napkin in my pocket. The horrible thing that happened at lunch was about Lappy, I said quietly. Someone lost a rabbit, and maybe it's him. Jack stared at me. Maybe it's him? I nodded, tears filling my eyes. I'm scared to find out if Lappy belongs to that other family. I have to call them, and I don't know what to say. Jack crawled out from under the table. Where was he going? Didn't he hear what I said? Now I was all alone. Then I heard Jack ripping pages from his notebook. What are you doing? I asked, coming out from under the table. Making cue cards, he replied. Jack handed me a pencil. As I wrote, my hand shook so hard it didn't even look like my handwriting. Hello, my name is Emma, and I found a rabbit. And that's the end of chapter 15.